Okay, hey everybody, thanks for listening today. I'm excited to have Jess Killeen on the phone. Jess is in Durango, Colorado, and she and her husband Ed own Grassburger, which has a location in Durango and then a new one in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So she's a very busy lady, and it was very kind of her to take the time to do this today. So Jess, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you because just personally started, kind of getting into more focus, that is, on nutrition and diet a few years ago. We've got young kids, and I'm in my early 40s, and started learning more and more about, eating hopefully a healthier diet. And grass-fed beef was something that came up, and I kind of got into that, and certainly have been enjoying eating that for a few years now. But you have a business that kind of is centered around that. So tell me the story of grass-fed or Grassburger, and what prompted you and Ed to get started in this business, and just sort of the background story.
Well, it actually has everything to do with what you already mentioned with family. We have two of our three boys have food allergies, like severe food allergies. And so going out to eat just became this enormous challenge for us. And whether we were traveling or even in our hometown, we kind of had our designated places and safety things. But it always seemed to come down to burgers for them, because the boys, that was a safe food for the most part, and the boys love hamburgers. So I started really looking at diet and nutrition and the differences in burgers and meats and what have you, and grass-fed beef kept coming up for me. Not just grass-fed beef, actually, but just grass-fed chicken and cage-free eggs, things that are raised in a different way that changes the composition of the meat and the food, and which is just so much better for human beings. So that's how we started eating at home. We went exclusively to grass-fed beef, and we actually started having burger parties at our house because people were like, boy, this meat is so delicious. And then that evolved to, if we're going to go out for a burger, wouldn't it be great if we could find a grass-fed burger? And once we started looking, it was very difficult to find. Or if we found it, it was like $20 for the burger, which isn't a sustainable price model for us to go out to eat. I mean, we're a family of 5. So literally one day, Ed and I sat down and we wrote the entire manifesto for Grassburger, like what we would want it to look like, how it could be allergy friendly, how it could be like the most nutrition for the least amount of money, trying to keep it really pocketbook friendly. And it fell right into that fast casual restaurant model that's become more and more popular because of the pricing and because of kind of the simplicity of where we were trying to keep it. Did I answer your question? Or?
No, it does, and it raises a few more. I mean, were you and Ed, had you been in the restaurant business prior to this?
Absolutely not. So I actually wanted to have a ranch and raise grass-fed beef, but Ed grew up on a farm, and he was vehemently opposed. He said, I'm not spending my weekends on it, working. So, of course, now here we opened a restaurant, and that's all we do on the weekends is work. So I don't know if we succeeded in that arena. But I think we did succeed in creating this burger model, which is, it is a healthier, more sustainable and price conscious model. I mean, and I think you know more about grass-fed beef than most will, but if you take a sampling of grass-fed versus grain-fed, the scientific difference between them is astounding. Like the levels of omegas, 3s and 6s, the healthy fats, are much higher in the grass-fed, and the levels of CLAs, which are, it's a group of amino acids, which are very good for our body, and it's lower in fat, lower in calorie, and your body just seems, I've seen people come in, I've seen actually a lot of pregnant women come in, and they have one grass-fed beef burger, and they are back. Like, they just crave it.
Yeah, I mean, the health differences are significant. So talk a little bit more about that, because, so, you know, for folks that really have not thought about this before, which is a lot of folks, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, we've been eating burgers for forever, and I had never thought about it, but other than grass-fed, of course, then the alternative, the typical burger you'd eat would be corn-fed beef, right?
Corn-fed, yes, and that has become, in the United States at least, that has become a relatively common staple to help fatten up beef and get them ready for slaughter sooner. So it's kind of become part of that whole economic model for the beef industry. So for ranchers that have switched over to grass-fed, it requires a longer kind of incubation period. So their business model shifts. So it's a significant thing from a rancher's perspective to make that change.
You get less meat per cow when you're feeding them grass, right? Because I mean, like you said, the corn fattens them up.
Right. You don't get less
more
meat.
Or more cuts or less fatty.
It changes the amount of time they're on pasture.
Okay.
So, and actually, the ranch that we use, Rain Crow Ranch, they're out of Missouri, and they're a wonderful example of a large. They're 4,000 acres, 1,900 heads of cattle, and they actually are a feeder system as well for a lot of smaller ranches outside their area. They converted to exclusively grass-fed primarily because Patricia and Mark run it, but Patricia is a large animal vet, and she started seeing a lot of health issues in the cows and the steers that she was treating, and she was able to connect that directly to what they were eating. Once they switched all their animals over to grass-fed exclusively, those issues just went away.
That's amazing. So, because that's what they're meant to eat, is grass.
That's what they're meant to eat, exactly. And so that when they're on things that their bodies aren't designed to eat, they end up with digestive issues and infections and bacterial issues. I mean, it makes them much more susceptible. So on our end as the consumer, when we're eating grass-fed, right, it's just a cleaner, more digestible meat for us as well, and you don't have all that heavy impact of antibiotics and hormones that come with it.
One of the things I remember reading about, I'm curious, you'll know a lot more about this, but is there a technical definition for grass-fed? And I asked that question because as I dove into this topic, I learned that you could call beef grass-fed if it was fed grass for a certain percentage of its life, but then you would have beef that was, as it was called, grass-fed corn finished, where maybe the last couple of months they fill them up with corn.
Yeah, I see that too. And so there's a lot of ways you can raise your cattle, right? You can, which is what you're seeing in the designations. We are committed to 100% grass-fed. So the research that I've done shows that, like, if you have a cattle that's grass-fed, if you take them off of it for a period of time, each day that you take them off and put them on corn or put them in a feedlot or whatever that other option is, the benefits of grass-fed decrease by the day that they are off of the grass. So we've made a commitment to keep our beef supply always absolutely 100% grass-fed.
And the benefits being the omega-3s reduce, the conjugated linoleic acids reduce, all the things that are the best part of grass-fed beef reduce significantly over a period of several weeks or a month or two. I think it was 2 months where it would almost return back to
that's exactly it.
Corn-fed its
you
whole life.
You can chart it. It's really amazing. I mean, when I read this stuff and look at the research that's been done, I'm just blown away. I mean, they really can document what happens compositionally with the nutrition of the meat. So yeah.
When did you start Grassburger?
2 years ago, July 3rd, the Durango store opened. So we just had our 2-year anniversary. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. And then you just opened your second one already in another state.
Yeah. We opened a second one in Albuquerque and in the Northeast Heights area. And it's a beautiful store. It's so fun having a restaurant that's brand new, like everything's still shiny and clean, and like I'm really enjoying that.
Well, this so I have a lot of questions around this. How long was the process between when you decided you were going to do this and when you opened your doors 2 years ago?
It decided on expanding the brand.
No, when you first decided to go with the restaurant, how long did you plan before you opened your first location?
It took us about a year before with writing the business plan too, and then about 6 months later, we actually had gotten our financing and plans in place. So that was about a year in the works. Albuquerque was much faster. That was super speed because we'd already done the hard lift, right?
That's a quick process getting to. That's especially with no experience in the business. Has that been beneficial? Have there been things that have helped you because you didn't have prior experience in the business? Well, tell me about the process of planning for this thing.
Probably beneficial and detrimental, all wrapped up in one pretty package. That ignorance is bliss, right? I think that having a fresh perspective has been great, but boy, our learning curve was so big, just in terms of equipment and ordering and inventory and like the actual mechanicals of running a business. And initially we hired on a restaurant consultant. His name was Jonathan Byers, and he's here in Durango, and he had opened up a couple other restaurants here in Durango. So he was really helpful. Because we didn't know anything about what equipment and how to make an ordering list and all of those things. But Ed and I quickly, within 6 months, we had figured out all that stuff, like the mechanicals behind it. And we hired good people. That makes all the difference in the world. We have a great team and staff and managers, and we learn from them. We're like vampires. We suck the juice, the good ideas, and every day we're learning and pivoting if we need to. So
how did you get good people? Is a new restaurant owners with no experience, nobody that you maybe, not an extensive network of contacts in the industry, how did you find good people to work for you?
Luck and determination and advertising and, I don't know really outside of that. We've certainly had our share of mistakes in terms of hiring. And the restaurant industry is volatile and hard for employees and employers. You have a lot of turnover, and then you also have and everything in between. And in Durango is challenging because we have a lot of the staff that works in the restaurants here are in college, and so looking for part-time work. And while they're motivated because they want to pay their rent, they also all have break at the same time. They tend to go away for the summer, and so you have these distinctive hiring times. So, or times that you go from 100% coverage of your shifts to all of a sudden you have 25% coverage and nobody's available. So that's fun.
Well, so now how long were you open when you decided to open one in Albuquerque?
About 6 months. Actually, Ed was talking about it very, very quickly. Ed's background is commercial development, and so really when we were writing the business plan for Grassburger, we in our minds we had a model that would be replicable, and we tried to create systems that would be able to be reproduced easily. So that was always in our mind, like creating more than one. We consider Durango our flagship, but and Albuquerque certainly is a foray into what that looks like on a larger scale. And it's been very interesting having this sister store, because all of our systems and everything that we're trying to match to each other, it showed us where we have work to do and where we succeeded, like in very, very short order.
What is an example of something where you realize you have work to do?
Our employee training program. So we were still really evolving that in Durango when we opened up Albuquerque, and then suddenly Albuquerque was ramping, and we have two different managers. We have three different managers actually. We have two in Durango and one in Albuquerque, and it just turns out they had really different styles with how they worked with employees. So now we're sort of piloting and trying to create this and trying to finalize this training system in Durango. And then in the meantime, the Albuquerque store staff is kind of getting trained in a different way out of necessity. So we had to pull that back, quickly finalize our process in Durango, and now we're trying to implement that in Albuquerque. So I'm saying this in like 4 sentences, right? But it's actually been months of observations and trying to figure it out, and meetings, and so that's one example.
How far is Albuquerque from Durango?
3.5 hours.
Okay. Why did you choose Albuquerque, out of curiosity? Is that you had some family or experience there?
No. Part of it is simply drive time. It's really it's very close. Compared to a Denver or Colorado Springs or some of the other larger metropolis areas, it's close, 3.5 hours. You can do it in a day. You can be back and forth in a day if you have to.
Yeah.
But we really like Albuquerque more than anything, and it has a burgeoning food to table. Farm to table. We call it farm to families movement, and there's some interesting demographics in terms of people's awareness of food and what they're eating, and I was really intrigued by kind of being at the forefront of that. Where some of these other cities that is so established. Our concept is really old news.
So let's talk more about then the food part, because it's not just the grass-fed beef, right? You're getting,
no.
You're sourcing. Tell me about that.
Well, so there's the grass-fed beef piece, and then we also do. Our menu has evolved. It was very, very simple to begin with, but we've just added Applegate chicken hot dogs, which are all natural, no nitrates, fillers. We just added taco plates, but we also do a vegan black bean quinoa burger, which we make in-house, and we make all of our salad dressings, like we make a tahini and a lemon balsamic, and we make those all from scratch. Our chipotle mayo we make from scratch, and the reason we do that is because then we can make something that has no corn syrup, no fillers. It's all 100% olive oil and good mustard, and the apple cider vinegar, like just really high quality ingredients. It's the dressing I would make at home,
right,
on a larger scale. And with our so we do hand cut French fries and sweet potato fries, and we keep our fryers dedicated to those items. We don't allow staff or any other food items because we're trying to keep them gluten free, and also make sure that they're not contaminated with any dairy products or any nut products, or, we're avoiding cross-contamination wherever we can to keep it simple for people who have allergies. It's maddening, or it's not maddening, but it's difficult to go into a restaurant with a food allergy and try and sort through the menu and the back of house ingredients and figure out what's safe and what isn't. And the same is true if you are avoiding gluten or, eat paleo or whatever you may have in terms of dietary restrictions. So our menu is designed to make that process simple for users. We do cage-free eggs. Our greens we source from local farmers. Like, we get as many parts of our greens or of our salad from local producers as we can. We can't do that all year. When we, in our climate, when we start to get into winter, I have to buy organic produce through our vendors. But as long as there's someone growing in the area, we're interested in supporting them. So we have them we kind of have like a backdoor farmers market going on.
Was that a difficult part of the process to find vendors and processes to, use clean, local produce, et cetera?
Yes. Well, yes and no. It's difficult from a cost standpoint. I mean, anybody who's purchased vegetables from the grocery store versus the farmer's market, you pay more, and yes, you are supporting those farmers in that local piece, and that's so important, but there is that step up in cost. And when you are building a restaurant model, cost is a huge part of it, whatever your margins are. So the way we have worked it out with our salad piece is that we blend our margin, because we know that organic produce, if locally, isn't available all year round. We do a blended back margin in our books, where we're, however months of the year we're buying from vendors, and that's a significant decrease in cost. And then that enables us to pay more in the seasons that it's available. So does that make sense? Like that?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Now, do you? I guess in your markets, is your consumer base educated about this, or do you have to do a lot of education?
Yes and no. It depends. Like, Durango is a surprisingly educated town in terms of food, and we have. It's a foodie town. We have more restaurants per capita here than San Francisco. It's crazy. But Albuquerque is a much bigger melting pot. So one of the issues that came up in Albuquerque is the value of our pricing, because people, are coming in and they're used to going to, I don't know, like Freddy's is a local burger shake place there, and it's really a step above McDonald's in terms of pricing. You get this massive amount of meat, and of course it's, and it's a good, healthy burger and fries, and it's half the cost of what ours is. So people who don't know or have never heard of grass-fed beef are going, well, why am I paying this for this when I can go over here and get that? And so we're really having to address that educational piece in that market, more so than here. But it's a good thing. I'm happy to do it. The other thing that has come up for us is the size of our patty, because we serve a 4-ounce patty. And so we've gotten pushback from some of the public saying, well, this is small. But for us, that's part of our ethos. Like according to the USDA, like 4 to 9 ounces of meat is what you should, or protein, is what a person should be eating in a day. So 4 ounces is a healthy and appropriate portion. We offer singles and we offer doubles. If people would like that, great, no problem. But we're really trying to wrap in this idea of okay, this is a good amount of meat. This is an appropriate and healthy and satisfying amount of meat. So that's been interesting.
Well, it's just a matter of perspective, I guess, when you're used to seeing much larger portion sizes. That can be a challenge, I'm sure. But what y'all are doing is just so admirable, and I'm thankful to hear that. I wish there were more places like Grassburger, which leads me to that next question. And what's the future hold?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm absolutely not sure. We're still working on stabilizing Albuquerque, and we really are intrigued by that market, and we'll see what happens. So we're kind of at that hard stage right now where we've got that one up and going, and like I was telling you, we're kind of looking at the warts in our system. And so if you were to talk to Ed, he would say, all right, let's start looking around and finding our next spot. And then I'm the one that's going, hold on. We have that dynamic, I think it's good for the business, but right now it's keeping that particular question, just that, a big question.
What's been the most satisfying part of Grassburger?
Well, on a personal note, I love feeding people. Like I love cooking and making meals, and so the best part for me is being out on the floor of the restaurants and talking to people. And I mean, we get a lot of feedback about the taste of the meat and how, it really is delicious. We won Best Burger and Fries in Durango last summer. We weren't even a year open to Reader's Choice deal, and that was a huge deal because the burger designation in this town is fiercely competitive. So we kind of swept it, and the people who held the contest came to us and said it was a complete landslide. And I have a lot of pride around that because we were so new, but it wasn't about me. It was about the meat. It's really good. And so it's just a lot of fun talking to people and getting that, seeing their faces when they take that first bite, and it never gets old.
That's awesome. Then on the flip side of that, what's been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome in the last couple of years?
The biggest challenges are really more about just simply business things. Just being in the industry, running a restaurant, staffing and training and consistency and communication, just all of those parts. I feel like we're really solid on our intent and on our product, but just normal everyday business things.
Which never go away in the restaurant business, but
which never go away. Yeah.
Well, how often? So you have 3 boys, and that you started this for partially for that. Does your family eat at Grassburger frequently?
Well, according to my youngest, not frequently enough. According to my oldest, too much. So I don't know that we'll ever be able to balance that. We have one burger that we created because of my youngest, William. We called it the Durango burger, but the secret name is actually the Will burger, the Willie burger. And that's your name too. And that is, it's a meat patty, our vegan black bean patty, and then the chipotle mayo on top. And his original version also had a couple slices of bacon. So that's his kind of, so they have a lot of input behind the scenes, whether they know it or not.
That's great. That's a good story. That's really cool. Well, is there anything else you wanted to you would want to share, Jess, with folks? Folks that are listening to this, or your peers in the industry, and then of course a lot of folks that want to get into the restaurant business and are wanting to learn from people that have done it successfully. Anything else you want to share?
I do have to give you guys a plug. I have to tell you that using Schedulefly has has been one of the decisions that we made running our business so much easier. Like, we love your product, not only from, I mean, all the employees can access it all the time, but like being able to give messages and to staff about things that come up at once. And we just started using your the posting capability. Like, we just revised our manual and put it up on Schedule Fly for the staff to access. So it's been a great tool. I'm just thrilled about it.
That's real nice of you. I appreciate that. You didn't have to do that.
I know I didn't, but it's really been good.
Well, I appreciate that. I would imagine it would help when you talk about systems in a couple of locations, and it can be good to have something like that, I think, in place that's easy to deploy across, multiple places. So, well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate your time very much. I know that you and Ed are busy, and frankly blown away at just what y'all have accomplished so quickly. I'm excited about what you're doing. I hope you'll find your way to Charlotte one day. Meanwhile,
I hope so too.
Yeah, I mean, meanwhile, we're buying, grass-fed. Luckily, we do have grass-fed beef at our local grocery store. So we've been, I make burgers every Sunday with grass-fed beef, actually.
That's awesome.
We've been using bison some too. Do you know much about bison? I started looking into that a little bit recently.
That's another really good source of meat. I just got a call about yak meat recently too that I thought was interesting. We have a lot of small ranchers and producers in our region and down in Albuquerque, and they don't raise enough beef to be able to supply our restaurant, but they're great resources for families to be able to buy, quarter steer or meat directly from them and freeze it. That's what we used to do before, and that's a really nice way to support those ranchers.
For sure. Well, keep doing what you're doing, and thank you for the time, and thank you for sharing your story. It's inspiring, and it's just wonderful to hear that y'all had the success you've had and overcome some of the challenges on the way, and just that you're doing something that's certainly benefiting a lot of people. So I hope you continue to thrive and educate more and more folks about the health benefits and value of eating that type of meat, and I hope the business continues to do well. Thanks so much, and please tell Ed thank you as well. We're stoked to serve you guys.
I will, and thank you, Will. Thank you for your time and your interest and all of your kind words, really.
Absolutely. Well, I'll let you get back to it, Jess, but I appreciate it very much. Have a good day.
Sounds good. You too. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.